How are you, Primary 3? Today we're going to talk about Chapter 4, Lessons 34 and 35. The area. What is the meaning of an area? The size of a surface or the amount of space units or space squares inside a shape or a surface. We can count the area using the square units. What is the meaning of square units? You count the squares. The area, the measure of the space inside the shape. What is the meaning? It means you count the squares or you find the area for the shape from the inside, not walking from outside. You can count the units to find the area. You can count how many squares. In this way you will say, let's say 7. What is the meaning of 7? 7 square units. That means that you counted 7 square units. This is the area. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or you can multiply the units to find the area. You don't have to count every unit that you can see. You can use the multiplication. Like in this example, you have 3 rows and 2 columns. When you multiply 3 times 2, you get the area of 6. So you have 2 ways. You can either count the squares or you can use the multiplication. It will give you 6 and it will give you another 6, the same answer. Multiply the number of rows by the number of columns. Let's take some examples for counting the area. In the first one, you have only 1 square units. Can you see any squares? No, it's just 1. In the other one, you can see 3 square units. Count 1, 2, 3. So the area is 3 units. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The area is 4 units. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 square units. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 units. And the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 units. This is the area. We can calculate the area using the multiplication. How many rows can you see? 2 rows. We said before, these are rows, these are columns. So you have 2 times 3. 2 times 3 will be 6. Okay, the other one, count the rows. 4 times 5. 4 rows and 5 columns. How many rows? 1, 2, 3 times how many columns? 5. 3 times 5. And of course, you will get the answer. Let's open your books, page 90. Read the problem and then build the garden plot using the small squares. Draw the garden plot on the grid paper. You can place your squares on the grid to help you draw the outlines of the garden. Find the total area of the garden plot, the array, and then repeat for all the garden plots that you have. The first one, Jana is planting squash. Each squash needs 1 square unit of space. She would like the garden to have 2 rows with 9 square units. What is the meaning of this? You have 2 rows times 9. How many squash can she fit? What is the area of her garden in square units? You have only 2 numbers in the problem. 2 rows and 9 square units. So you will draw on your grid 2 rows and 9 columns. 2 times 9 equals 18. 18 is what? 18 square units because you're counting the square units. Plot number 2. Omar wants to plant corn. Corn needs 1 square unit of space. He would like the garden to have 3 rows with 7 square units in each row. Underline 3 and underline 7. These are the 2 numbers that you have. How much corn can Omar fit in his garden? What is the area of his garden in square units? We said 3 times 7. So this is the shape of the garden. 3 rows times 7 columns. You have 21 square units. Plot number 3. Yusuf loves watermelon. He wants to plant it in his garden. Watermelon needs 1 square unit of space. He would like the garden to have 4 rows with 4 square units. Underline 4 and 4. This is the garden for Yusuf. 4 and 4. How many watermelons can Yusuf fit in his garden? What is the area of his garden in square units? We underline 4 and 4. So this is the shape of the garden. 4 rows with 4 columns. 4 times 4 equals 16. 16 what? 16 square units. As for Nadia, for plot number 4, she wants to plant zucchini. Zucchini needs 1 square unit of space. She would like the garden to have 3 rows with 4 square units in each row. How much zucchini can Nadia fit in her garden? What is the area of her garden? This is the shape of the garden. 3 rows with 4 square units. It's 3 times 4. And of course, we said that if you exchange the number in multiplication, you still have to get the same answer. 3 times 4 will be the same as 4 times 3. They have the same result. It's 12 square units. Garden number 5. Aya wants to plant lettuce. Lettuce needs 1 square unit of space. She would like the garden to have 5 rows with 8 square units. 5 rows with 8 square units. How much lettuce can Aya fit in her garden? What is the area of her garden in square units? This is the shape of the garden. 5 rows with 8 square units. And of course, 5 times 8 equals 40 square units. And if you exchange the numbers, you can get 8 times 5 will still be 40 square units. In the next slide, your book, page 95. If Jana, Omar, Yusuf, Nadia, and Aya all put their gardens together, what would be the total area? We said before that if he asks about together or total with each other, that means plus or minus, it means plus. You will add all the areas that we calculated before. You have 18 plus 16 plus 21 plus 12 plus 40. You get 107 square units. For number 2, Heba has 2 rectangular gardens, one for lettuce and the other for squash. The squash takes up 12 square units and the lettuce takes up 10 square units. Please underline 12 square units and 10 square units. What could her garden looks like? Remember, the gardens are all rectangles with the same number of square units in each row. For the blue one, you have 3 rows and 4 columns. These are the 12 square units for the squash. As for the pink one, you have 2 rows and 5 columns, 10 square units for the lettuce. For the next page, you have book page 98, apply. You have rectangle number 1. We want to calculate the area of all these shapes. You have 6 rows and 3 columns. That's right, 6 times 3 equals 18. You can count the square units or multiply the 6 and the 3, the row and the column. For rectangle number 2, you have 4 times 8 or 8 times 4. The same answer. You get 32 square units. As for rectangle number 3, you have 10 rows in 7 columns. The total area will be 70. And of course, you're not going to count all this. And we took before that any number multiplied by 10, the same number, and just add 0. Rectangle number 4, you have 4 rows and 5 columns. It can be 4 times 5 or 5 times 4. You still get the same answer. You have 20 square units. As for rectangle number 5, you have 8 rows and 5 columns. You can write them 8 times 5 or 5 times 8. You get the same answer for 40 square units. For rectangle number 6, you have 7 rows and 3 columns, which gives you 7 times 3 equals 21 square units. The next slide for book page 100, you can find problem number 1. This is a shape that you didn't take before. Needs to know the total area. Count the units. You have to count the square units. How many squares can you have? That's right, 30. 30 square units. For rectangle number 2, also count the units. How many squares do you get? 21 square units. This is it for today, and see you next time in another lesson.